Sometimes even the people we believe we know best can surprise us. Just when we think we fully understand someone, their confidence quiets, their happiness softens, and a truth emerges that changes everything. That's exactly what happened when our favorite morning show co-host, actor and husband Mark Consuelos stunned Kelly Ripa and millions of viewers with a deeply personal revelation. Nothing about that moment was expected. Not after decades of an apparently unshakable marriage, effortless banter on air, and chemistry so natural it felt instinctive. For years, Mark and Kelly appeared to embody ease and certainty, but beneath the smiles was a story shaped by uncertainty, quiet anxiety, and personal growth, one few could have anticipated. When Mark finally spoke his truth, Kelly's response revealed more than any interview ever could. As the story unfolds, you begin to see a different side of both Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos. By the end, you may even find yourself reconsidering how you define love and how you see yourself. It all began during a recent taping of Live with Kelly and Mark. Like any other weekday morning, the plan was light-hearted conversation, some humor, casual banter, maybe a story about their children. But something shifted. Mark straightened in his chair. The familiar smile he wore so easily faded for just a moment. He released a deep breath, the kind that comes before long-held feelings finally surface. Then he said it. My search for self-affirmation has taken up most of my life. The studio fell silent. Kelly turned toward him, her eyes widening slightly, as if asking, "Where is this coming from?" Mark continued, speaking without a script, without preparation. He admitted that no amount of success ever truly feels like enough after a certain point. Even when you smile for the cameras, he said, the searching doesn't stop. For the first time, the usually composed and relaxed Mark Consuelos allowed his vulnerability to be seen by the studio audience and by viewers at home. To understand how he arrived at that moment, you have to go back, before Riverdale, before celebrity status, before Live with Kelly and Mark. Mark was raised in a family where hard work was non-negotiable. His parents, of Mexican and Italian heritage, taught him perseverance, humility, and faith. Nothing was handed to him. Every achievement came through effort. When he first met Kelly Ripa on the set of All My Children in the 1990s, their connection was immediate. Their spontaneous Las Vegas wedding felt like a scene pulled straight from the soap opera where they met. But even as their careers flourished, a quiet doubt lingered inside Mark. Am I enough? As Kelly's star continued to rise, talk show host, best-selling author, beloved television personality, Mark found himself asking difficult questions. It wasn't jealousy, it was something more subtle and more human, the fear that the people we love most may someday outgrow our contributions. Fame brought admiration, but also pressure. Every morning they stepped out knowing cameras could be watching. Every gesture was interpreted, every expression analyzed. In past interviews, Mark spoke openly about often playing supporting roles in other people's stories. Over time, that feeling deepened. When Kelly was praised for her brilliance and charm, Mark sometimes sensed the public saw him primarily as her husband. He loved her deeply, but privately wrestled with his own sense of identity. Many couples know that tension well, loving someone wholeheartedly while struggling silently within yourself.
Kelly's reaction that morning mattered so much. She didn't interrupt him. She didn't soften the moment with humor or redirect the conversation. She listened. The camera captured her pressing her lips together, her hands clasped, a gesture filled with quiet understanding. Her silence spoke volumes. Then she said simply, "You have always been enough." Leaning closer, she added, "You never needed anyone else's validation." The audience erupted, but for those who had followed their journey, this was more than a touching television moment. It was a turning point in their marriage, unfolding live. Later, Mark explained that the confession wasn't planned. It just came out, he said. I felt like I needed to say it for myself, and maybe for someone watching who feels the same way. Kelly later shared that after the show ended, they stayed alone in the dressing room for nearly an hour. The lights went down, the crew left. They simply sat together. Kelly told him she hadn't fallen in love with a celebrity, a producer, or a public figure. She fell in love with Mark, the same man who once struggled with jealousy, the same man who became an extraordinary father. That, she said, had always been enough. In the days that followed, social media filled not with gossip, but with recognition. Men, in particular, flooded the comments. One wrote, "My wife is the star, the breadwinner, the most outgoing one. I've lived in her shadow for years. Hearing Mark say this made me realize I wasn't imagining it." Another said, "We always assume men are supposed to be unbreakable. Seeing Mark admit his cracks gave me more strength than any display of toughness ever could." Despite outward success, acting, producing, hosting, investing, imposter syndrome doesn't care about resumes or bank accounts. It shows up when you look in the mirror and wonder whether you're truly being yourself. After Mark officially joined Live as Kelly's permanent co-host, critics doubted the decision. Some warned against working with your spouse. Early on, Mark seemed tense, overly prepared, focused on being the perfect co-host instead of simply being himself. But something changed after that Tuesday morning confession. Viewers could feel it. Mark relaxed. His humor became more natural. He stopped trying to match Kelly's rapid-fire energy and leaned into his own rhythm. He no longer needed to be Kelly Ripa 2.0. He only needed to be Mark. And interestingly, audiences responded. People didn't want perfection, they wanted authenticity. A real married couple navigating life together, imperfections included. Their history made that moment even more meaningful. When they eloped in Las Vegas in 1996, it was Mark who took the risk. Kelly was already a fan favorite. He was the newcomer. He is admitted to intense jealousy early on, even recounting an argument with a restaurant server who treated Kelly like royalty. That jealousy, he later realized, stemmed from insecurity, the same insecurity he named on air decades later. Mark went to therapy. He did the work. He grew. But the drive to prove oneself doesn't disappear overnight. It evolves. As their children grew and left home, that sense of purpose shifted. Kelly later admitted that Mark struggled more deeply with empty nest syndrome. He would walk past their children's empty bedrooms and sigh, unsure of where his value now lived. She believed he didn't realize that his worth was never tied to roles. It was simply in being. Ironically, that public moment of vulnerability became Mark's greatest strength. For a Generation X man raised on stoicism, admitting self-doubt on national television required immense courage. In doing so, he gave others permission to lower their armor. He showed that insecurity can exist alongside success, beauty, and love. And most importantly, he proved that sometimes growth doesn't come from doing more, but from finally saying the truth out loud. Today, Kelly and Mark have entered a new chapter. They are no longer just the attractive soap opera couple or the polished television hosts. They are two people who have weathered fame, gossip, and time, and who now face the quieter challenges of midlife together. Watching Kelly support Mark in that moment was a masterclass in partnership. It wasn't loud, it wasn't performative, it was real. And sometimes that's the most powerful thing of all.